Up here, where I live now, we have Friday night parties with moonshine and craft beers and homemade ciders. You know, he smokes a lot of weed. He's awesome. I'm chemically enhanced. I fought in a revolution. I fought in a war. I was in Hurricane Katrina, the biggest natural disaster in the country. Hey, man, you gotta lead a life worth writing about. Yeah, you have to be who you really are. You can't hide and try to be somebody else just to try to get more people to buy your book.
Case just had a bad experience with the craft beer.
It's the death of America.
Confronting authors with real questions about the writing process, the difficult and disheartening publishing industry, and why anyone would choose to torture themselves in the world of writing. This is the Literally Podcast with your host, writer, runner, and the literary voice of Ogden, Utah, Case Johnston. Exposing literature, the authors, the business, the process. The Literally Podcast.
So this is Case Johnston. This is the Literally Podcast. This is our inaugural 30 Minutes with Sean, where we talk with Sean Davis, author,
Bigfoot Finder,
and friend. And so we're just going to have 30 minutes a month where we talk about writing, talk about what we're working on, and go from there.
Should mention this is the raw, unedited version of Literally. And,
yes.
If you have sensitive ears, you may want to switch your podcast now. So
you don't cuss in the other one?
No, we do. We just had
we cuss professionally in the other one.
Yeah, we cuss with precision. This is my friend Sean Davis. We've known each other since 2009. We were roommates together at Pacific University, where we got our MFA, and we've been close friends ever since. My son just last week asked if we could come back to Portland or come back to Mackenzie Bridge to see Jackie, and he mentioned Sean. Jackie is Sean's daughter. So once a month, we're just going to talk about writing. Right now, Sean is working on his fire book. Let's hear about that.
Well, it's a great project, man, because, you know, I fight wildland fires in the summertime. And I was approached by the History Press to write a nonfiction book about the history of wildland fires in Oregon. So I'm writing about how to become a firefighter if you want to, the need for firefighters, the future greater need for firefighters, and the different fires that happened here in Oregon. There's a lot of interesting stuff, you know. I mean, it's just bigger than... You just imagine these fires that are burning 1 million acres, you know, like 47,000 square miles. And these fires get so intense, and the fires get intense. They start their own weather systems because they need air so bad they're just sucking it in. And so much so that they're pulling trees out of the ground, flaming trees, and throwing them like, you know, miles in like you could see the flames for hundreds of miles, and people, the ash is spit into the air. Like one of the fires in Oregon, people that are on boats 50 miles off the coast are having flaming debris land on their deck, and it's just insane. And just to think about how people must have thought the world was coming to an end. We haven't been through something like that other than, you know, the Trump presidency. I put that in there.
When did you start this book?
I started it about a year ago. I had a hard time because the History Press, you know, they are very photograph kind of dictates the content. You need a lot of photographs in there. I'm trying to make eye contact, and it's not, you know, the way that is working. I don't know. It's funny.
Nobody can see you with your arms.
Yeah, whatever. So I had to find a bunch of photos, and it was really difficult because at first you're freaking out. It's like, I'm not going to get enough photos, but then you realize everything that the U.S. government takes a photo of is public domain, so I got plenty of them. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Just trying to put them in there and try to find old photos and new photos and then write about it and write like an interesting story. You know, have you ever read a history book? You're like, kill me now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it interesting.
Should mention Sean is not in the room with us.
Yeah, Sean he's in Mackenzie Bridge, Oregon.
Mackenzie Bridge, man. This is where I grew up. So I was in Portland for a long time, and I didn't get outpriced from Portland. I got out cultured. They just changed so much I didn't recognize them. So I just go home where I grew up, and it's amazing. But it's right. It's leading the rider life. You guys know, but you just sitting at home and you don't. That's your job, and you work at home. And if you're not careful, you're wearing the same shirt for 3 days. You forgot to take a shower. You're doing weird things with your chickens.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I visited Sean in January, and when I left, he was wearing that shirt.
The same Smokey the Bear.
It's the same shirt. I think he's been in it for 2 months.
Yeah. No, I've gotten this schedule down where wake up in the morning. I go over to my Uncle Ralph's fifth wheel. We do stationary bikes and work out a little bit. He smokes a lot of weed. He's awesome.
Wait, is there a stationary bike in the fifth wheel?
Two of them. So there's the fifth wheels. I'm not a small man. So the fifth wheel's like rocking back and forth while
I love it.
You got to send photos that should be the cover of this.
I'll be halfway through, like 12 minutes in, and he'll like, oh shit, I forgot to take my gun out of my pants, and he'll set it up on the thing. Like he'll say, you'll get there someday, but I'm cheating. I'm chemically enhanced, and then he'll smoke a bowl. I'm like, while he's on a stationary bike, man, it's surreal out here. It's pretty awesome. Oh, I forgot you guys are in Utah. It's probably weird talking about this stuff. Here in Oregon, it's illegal. So
no, I'm just looking for. I signed up for a half Ironman in September, and your uncle just gave me a tip how to stay on my trainer for longer. Smoke some dope and then spin my wheels.
Fifth wheel.
Yeah.
I get done with that, and I come home. I'll drink some coffee, watch CNN a little bit to get really angry about the world. And I'll just come in and start typing shit up. And then I type for a while, and then I take a break around lunch, cook some food, go cut some wood. Sometimes I'll grab one of my chickens and bring it in because it's snowing outside, and I love my chickens. I have this weird attachment with them. They're cool chickens. And then I'll type some more, and then that's what I've been doing. And I forget. I'm playing with the idea of becoming an assistant coach for the elementary school basketball team for the K through 12.
Yeah.
Went to the game last night. It was pretty awesome.
That'd be fun. How many kids do they have?
They have 5.
Yeah,
no, they have 6. They have one person that can sub out. I mean, I think we have a 3rd grader on the team too. I mean, seriously, they got killed. I mean, they played their hearts out. They're awesome. They only had 6 players, right? And then Lowell, the team down, they were subbing the whole teams in. They had like 20 players. But we did get into double digits this time.
That's good. That's like my high school career. When I was in 8th grade, we lost to the local junior high. I played for St. Joe's. We lost 88-8.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, we lost to Ogden. Ogden had like a stacked junior jazz team.
Yeah.
And we lost 88-8. And you know what?
You got 8.
We got 8.
Our first game, it was 3 to 70, and this
what
game,
was it?
3 to 70.
Yeah.
This game it was 20 to 71.
Mm-hmm.
So making progress on our offense. Let's talk about writing. What do you guys got going on? Talk about craft
beer.
Yeah, exactly. We're both drinking homemade beers right now. We just did a podcast right before this, and all right, we had a co-host, Shane Griffiths, and her husband does homemade beer, and she brought us a bunch, and it's really good.
Can you tie in craft beer and the craft of writing?
Oh yeah. I think you have to, unless we craft whiskey. Was it the home distilleries? Up here where I live now, we have Friday night parties with moonshine and craft beers and homemade ciders. You have to go up this mountain trail. It's like a logging road. And there's this guy who lives out there, and he has like this pool table set up, and he's got horseshoes with lights out there. So you just drink, you put a couple bucks in the tin, and Jerry lets you drink his homemade craft beers, and then somebody else will bring the moonshine, and then we play horseshoes all night. And I actually found out I'm pretty good at it. I never played it before. They couldn't lose the other night. It was awesome. But then you have to be careful. I wasn't really drinking. Those guys were, because I had to drive home. But
Be careful with the moonshine, huh?
okay, I took one sip, but it was pretty good, and so I'm like, no more. I can't, because my buddy Al, he drank the moonshine, man. He was talking about politics all night. He went crazy.
That's the average proof of moonshine, 100 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
So when's the book due?
The book is due on the first 3 days.
Oh,
3 days?
yeah. How many words?
Oh, it's only 35,000 words.
Yeah, that's how they like them.
Yeah, but a lot of photos, right? And so
Yeah.
you have the caption on the photos and everything. So and it's pretty. I like it. It's a great thing to do between projects. You know, I have another one coming out with reprobate books out of Portland. This guy that I really like, he does Gobshite Quarterly. You remember meeting him?
Yeah.
And so what Gobshite does is amazing. He does get some grants for it, but he takes stories from all over the world and he translates them into like 5 or 6 languages in the same quarterly book or magazine. And like he took one of my stories about stripping in Germany and he translated in German and Spanish and English and like Czechoslovakian or something like that.
But that was nonfiction.
Yeah, it was. Hey man, you gotta lead a life worth writing about.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do.
Yeah,
you're not sliding that past me as fiction.
No, man. It was I was in the army, you know, but
That's the excuse.
as military police, I was moonlighting as a stripper at snow resorts, and that was pretty fun. Yeah, man.
Sean, what do you do to I mean, you have a morning routine now, which is pretty epic with the fifth wheeler thing. But before you start riding, or is there a certain to get in the mood? You know, you have a little routine before you settle down.
You know, well, it depends. I mean, fiction and nonfiction are different animals. For nonfiction, not really. I watch the news, I check my Facebook, and then I'm like, all right, now I'm turning all that stuff off, write about something. If it's something I find something really interesting, what I'm doing is I'll go back on Facebook or Twitter or something. I'll put it out there because you want to build that social media, and people you want to have people see what you're doing so they get hyped about the book.
Yeah.
And so that's easier, I think, than writing fiction. And plus, when I'm writing nonfiction, like the Fire book, and something on the news happens, I'll write about it, and then I'll give it to the Big Smoke America. I don't know if you guys know about that. And so I usually get, pretty, like one of the things that I did off of the Big Smoke's online magazine that started in Australia, that's now coming to the United States. One of the things that I started with was, one of the things that I had written was about the Purple Heart to Trump, and it went viral. I had so many shares, like thousands, and people from all over the world, like news agencies, were calling me. And so I haven't had that success with another article, but the last one I wrote, not the parade one, but with the school.
Yeah, the AR-15 one.
Yeah, he wants to arm the teachers. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm a combat veteran. I'm a teacher. I think I know what the hell I'm talking about. This is a stupid idea. And
you carried the gun in 4 different places under 4 different names, right?
Yeah, well, it was the M16A1, M16A2, and then it was the M4, and then those are all just different types of AR-15s, and so it went all over. I fought in a revolution, I fought in a war, I was in Hurricane Katrina, the biggest natural disaster in the country, and now I've got to carry it into the classroom. I thought it was ridiculous. There's too many stupid things about that, and so I wrote about that too. So that's nonfiction's great. But fiction is different. I write a lot about. I steal a lot of stories from people, right? For this latest story that I've been writing about, I don't know. I've been working with Chuck Palahniuk and Lydia Yuknevich for like the last 2 months. They're doing a close workshop with a lot of people, and I got to be a part of that. I was lucky enough to be a part of that. It's still going on. I just been snowed in for the last 2 weeks. I haven't been able to get to it, but I've been learning so much, and so I'm also doing some fiction stuff there too. And a lot of the fiction stuff for this new story that I'm working on, and I don't know. I might go into the reprobate book. I'll finish telling you guys about that. The book that's after the fire book. It's about just stories about here. You know, I moved out here, and while we're on the bike, Uncle Ralph's telling me these stories about the '80s, and I'm like, holy shit! Like Mel Truck Chuck, this guy who learned how to dance fight in France, would kick everybody's ass room.
Yeah.
Dance fight.
He's the reason why they had to change from glass pitchers to plastic pitchers. I mean, and then you had Big Willie and his harem. There's like a giant beaver who had this whole folklore built around him, you know, and like you try to go tear down his dam because it would flood an area or stop your creek from flowing, and you get attacked by beavers, and like there's all kinds of weird. But so I steal all these stories and I put a narrative to it. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, if you haven't been up there, I got Lucas and I, my boy and I went up. What's been 2 months, and it's gorgeous. Holy
About
shit.
where is it?
Sean could tell you better.
Well, if you're heading south from Portland and you hit Eugene, you take a left and you just head east up the mountains, the Cascades. Yeah, we have a nice little pond. We have a weird duck that comes visit us all. That makes it huge and ugly. And then we have the chickens and
Yeah. It's a lot different than Alberta, huh?
yeah. And I love Portland, but it was just time for me to get out, man. Still go over there every, at least once a month, sometimes twice or 3 times a month. So,
Yeah.
depending. An art show coming up on March 31st at a gallery over there, and it's going to pair it with a reading. So I'm going to do some paintings, and I was supposed to read at Burnt Tongue last week, but I was snowed in.
Yeah.
It was snowing pretty hard up here.
Yeah. We just barely got it. I mean, we've had no snow all year.
Wow.
No, and like last year we had how many?
Too much
Way
snow
too much.
last
We
year.
had so much snow. Like it was difficult to live in this area because we had so much snow last year. And this year it hadn't snowed all year, and we got on a flight to Kansas Friday morning, and it snowed like fucking hell. We got stuck on the tarmac for 3 hours, and then we finally took off, and we were going to Minneapolis to Kansas, and then we missed all our flights from Minneapolis to Kansas City. And I'm going to write about this because we spent the night in a Residence Inn that was attached to the Mall of America. You know, Mall of America in Minneapolis, the biggest mall. It has a whole amusement park and roller coasters and stuff inside the mall.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Water
has
park.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And at the same time, I'm going to write about it. It's the death of America. It really is, because I would say I can't even, I'll have to look it up, but the square footage of the thing is ridiculous.
America's wake.
Yeah, well, it is like in the entire mall, has every single chain and every single store that you've ever been to in your entire life. Every single, I mean, like if you're like, oh, geez, I'd love to go to Chick-fil-A. There's a fucking Chick-fil-A there. If you're like, oh, I want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings, in the mall, Buffalo
Really?
Wild
Wow.
Wings. And in the center of it is all, it's
That's
roller
sort of
coaster.
convenient, though.
It's extremely convenient, but there's not one like locally owned store in. I'm gonna be hyperbolic, but it's probably 100,000 square feet. I mean, it's the biggest. Well, it's the biggest mall in America, and I'm gonna write about it. But we got stuck there, and I took some photos, and you get lost in the mall, but there's not one mom and pop store in the entire thing. It's really kind of like, to me, it was like death of America. Like, this is like the American dream is all of us being able to kind of make our own thing, and there's not one person making their own thing in that entire place.
Well, whoever owns the mall.
Whoever owns the mall is doing
Yeah,
they're doing
Is
good.
there a bookstore?
Yeah, there's a Barnes and Noble right in the middle of it.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. Oh no, like an independent? No, like name a store, it's there. Like a chain. What's that?
Yeah. That's our culture.
That's
It's
our
American.
culture, and it's like, and it's people. They come from all over the country just to stay at Mall of America. Like, there were people next to us in line going, we've been saving our money. And people come from like all over the country and they have like shirts from their state that they're wearing. And they're staring at the
Wait,
resident.
You didn't have one?
No, we didn't actually, because we got stuck there. We didn't have any clothes, just the ones that we got there with.
Yeah.
And so they have a state that says Mall of America, like New Jersey.
Yeah.
And they spend a whole week there at the mall, which is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Sean's got his shirt out.
No, Case got it for me.
Yeah, I did.
Mexico.
And look at.
They spelled the
Fact
word.
you, fact you too. I like that. Fact you too. So this is a good question though, Sean. I know you're never one to censor opinions on social media in or in general, I'm sure, but in the writing process and getting published and in the literary world, do you censor? Do you not censor? Is it better to not censor? What's your thoughts?
I think it would be better to not be political for sure. I try not to be, on social media, but it's hard for me, unless I guess I use my writer, I have my writer Facebook page, and I don't use that a lot. I don't know why. I don't know. Can you separate it? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's the question, right? Is like, do you purposely separate it, or do you just be who you are, and maybe that's what sells, is because so many other people are thinking the same thing and you're the only one who's brave enough to put it out there?
Well, I don't know if it's the bravery. I think you're right, though. What I believe is, like, Vonnegut thought about this too, and this is why he said there's never been a successful Hemingway movie, is because Hemingway became like this personality, and everybody knows his books and his stories, but they couldn't divide the personality from the movie. So whoever they had play any of his characters wasn't Hemingway, so it just didn't work. Vonnegut was his own personality, and that's why people love his books. I think that now people really love the writer as much as the content of the writing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Lydia Yuknavitch; she's an amazing person, and she is the writing. She doesn't try to separate her politics from her any of her life or anything. She doesn't hide it. And I would hate somebody to pick up my book thinking that I was along their political lines and like, this guy is not a conservative Republican. Oh, shit, wasted $8 or whatever. Not that they read, but see, I can't stop myself, man. I don't know.
I know.
And that's sort of the point. It's like, do you limit your audience, if you do that?
Yeah.
Is that a good idea,
Pretty much. But, as far as like somebody who is, tries to be an intellectual, at least has pretty liberal ideas. I mean, those are only people reading anymore. Anyway, so as a writer, are you really cutting your audience by keeping out the conservative people who aren't open-minded?
Case just had a bad experience with the craft beer, so we're switching to a Little Hole. And it's a beer.
Little Hole
It's a
lager.
beer, we should mention, yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing, though, is if you try to toe the middle line, what do you have to say?
You don't please anyone.
Well, you're just kind of. I think the hard part is, especially on social media, it's just gotten so heated. I mean, I think writers 20 years ago could have written something, and it's their voice on the page. Now it's this thing that it's like people they take it out of context, then there's trolls, and it's a different thing these days.
Trolls is Trolls is a big part, and it's probably changed a lot. But what I think more like social media just kind of amplifies how we already are now. I mean, even if it wasn't here, we're such a divide. Maybe it is a big tool why we're a divided country, but I think whether or not it was here, we'd still be divided. I know with just our media, right? Just the CNN and shit. And so, yeah, you have to be who you really are. You can't hide and try to be somebody else just to try to get more people to buy your books.
Yeah, because it would be bullshit, and it would be they'd see right through it.
Like in my book with the fire book, right? One of the things that I've really realized is researching the fire book is that global warming is real. Climate change, man-made climate change is completely a big thing. It's not like I didn't know it before, but it really just stressed it to me. but I'm not putting in this book like the dangers. I'm not trying to be overtly political about, forcing climate change down people's throats. I'm just listing these facts that really not change my minds, but like emphasize the point. So I list the facts, and I'm not saying man-made climate change. I'm not saying global warming, but through just the facts, hopefully they can connect their own dots. But I completely believe that, man-made climate change is changing. I mean, there's so many, like the fire season in the 70s was 23 days. Now it's over 113 days, right? That's the season that you're fighting fires. Our snowpack in Oregon alone has been reduced to 20% since 1950. The first summer melt or the spring melt is a month and a half earlier now than it used to be. I mean, so these are facts that you just present, and people can still say if they want to read my book and they're very conservative, they can convince themselves that it might be the cycles, because I'm not trying to push a political ideology down their throat, but I am giving them the facts, and that's what I've learned. So, maybe I can't keep myself from saying what the fuck Trump, but at the same time in the book itself, I'm not trying to be overtly political.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in full disclosure, I'm a registered independent conservative, and I, being friends with you, Sean, on Facebook, I get to see your opinions, and that's what I like to see. I like to see how other people than what I think are voicing their opinions and what they think. And so then it's like, okay, well, if I want to read his book, how deep am I going to get into the politics? Because I want to read it. But am I going to be turned off?
Yeah, in the books, I'm not going to bring the politics. And also, social media is different for me because I do enjoy, and also I am an independent. The only reason I've ever signed to be a Democrat, was to vote for the independent, right? But
Utah does that too. Like, you have to actually be in a party. You can't be an independent locally.
Locally, you can't do it.
In the primaries. But, so I don't try to put it in there. But on the internet, I like discourse. I mean, I think our country was definitely built around people with different opinions. If it was just like all one-sided, we wouldn't have got anywhere, right? So I like argument, but only, in a civil way. The trolls mess it all up. But
they do. They mess it all up. If we could all just kind of follow Aristotle, we'd be okay. If we all stuck to Aristotelian argument, where would we be now? We'd get somewhere, wouldn't we?
Is that a Facebook page? Aristotelian, how do you say that? Aristotle argument.
Aristotelian
argument.
Aristotelian argument. We're all going for the greater purpose, not to prove anybody wrong, right? We're meeting in the middle.
Going to things with an open mind, and when I argue with people, I try to see their point of things. And I guess that'd be more of a Rogerian or a Tolman argument. I think that that is definitely a good way to go into things. But what I'm trying, social media, you can do that. A book, you really can't do that. So, if you're not able to argue, I really don't want to put my opinion too much. I don't want to throw the argument at somebody in a book that I really expect them to sit down and read over a period of days, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's only so many times you can just shake your head like, this guy's full of shit. This guy's full of shit before they're just going to throw it away. So.
I suppose you could market yourself, though. You could, pick a side, and then that's what you write about and sell yourself from that position. And people do that with political books, for sure.
Bill O'Reilly killing Jesus, killing Lincoln, Coulter. A lot of the guys on the right. I did have a couple of books on the left too. I forget who the hell it was, but like George Bush Has to Go. That's definitely a genre. Sure.
Oh, it is. It's the first thing that I walk into a classroom, because I teach rhetoric and argument, and I've had for 10 years now. And the first thing I always tell students is there's always going to be 5% on the left, the far left. There's always going to be 5% on the far right. We don't listen to either of them. We just don't, because they're the crazies. They're the people that don't listen, and they're the trolls, right? They're the people that fuck everything up, in a sense that if somebody's saying, it's really frustrating, because I get stuck on these chains in social media where people are really having a nice kind of,
dude, don't comment, Case.
I know, I don't. a legitimate conversation, and then a troll comes in, and that whole thing is done. Yeah. It's like these people are talking, they're getting through some stuff.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yep. And then a troll comes in, and then people just, trolls are trolls for a reason. They are really good at it. You know what I mean? They are really good at it.
Well, they're all Russian.
Well, that is true. that.
So you guys know Trump shrank bears' ears, and then he's trying to shrink a monument here in the Cascades in Oregon.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this really nice, I thought it was nice, piece for an op-ed in the Oregonian. And I made the mistake one day of reading the comments. And in my whole...
Oh, never read the comments.
It's like my second Oregonian op-ed for the monuments, to keep the monuments and stop messing with our wildland. I'm like, because we want it for our future generations. It helps veterans heal with the hiking and such and fishing. And people just went like, you don't speak for every veteran. We want uranium mining. I'm like,
what? Where? Why is what? First off, why? I didn't say that I did. It was like, well, I was talking. I just finished reading Terry Tempest Williams' book about. It's around here somewhere. I don't know what the title of it was, but it's like a mix of memoir, and she does a historical kind of background of how all the major national parks were formed in the United States.
Yeah.
And there was some shady shit, like Jackson Hole, like up in Teton Valley. The Rockefellers, under like a fake name, bought all this land and then gifted it to the government. They basically stole all this land from all these ranchers and farmers. And I love the national parks. I absolutely, and that area is just ridiculous. I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, it was some shady ass shit.
Yellowstone's my favorite place. You can go to the Mammoth.
Yeah.
You go to Mammoth, Yellowstone, and in Mammoth, Yellowstone, there is a museum, and it covers the history of it, and it talks about how it was the Wild West there in Yellowstone for a while. People were just shooting the place up and trapping and doing everything, and then until Wilson, who was it?
Woodruff, I don't know.
Claimed. Oh boy, that's really bad. I don't know who invented the parks.
We'll Google it later.
Google, yeah, but came in and said, okay, this is now a national park, and they had to send in a military unit.
Yeah, to claim it. Yeah.
Sean, this has been 30 minutes already. We have to wrap because it's called 30 Minutes with Sean. So you got to leave us with some wisdom for the month.
Never wear overalls when you have the shits.
Oh, yes.
Wow. I was hoping for some writing wisdom, but we'll take it. Yeah.
Well, he wrote that down. That's all that matters. Yeah.
Actually, that's in my latest story.
Yeah.
Write every day, read every day.
So if you have questions for Sean and or Case, Literally doesn't have a Twitter yet, though.
No, we need a Twitter.
DM on Instagram, the Literally podcast on Instagram.
We'll have our monthly with Sean. Monthly 30 minutes with Sean.
Yep. I love it.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
See you guys. Never wear overalls when you have the shits.